Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Anne-Marie Butler. I'm the President of the Agricultural Science Association, and I'm delighted to welcome you to this morning's session, Climbing the Career Ladder. You're all very welcome back. For many of you, you were with us at our first session late last year, and it was a tremendous session with both Gerry and Marcus O'Halloran, and thank you to all for rejoining. We hope you're safe and well. It certainly continues to be a challenging time nationally, but we hope that everybody is safe, well, and thank you for supporting ASA. We're delighted this morning to be joined by both Gerry Duffy and Dara Killeen with an exciting agenda ahead. As you know, Gerry is one of Ireland's foremost motivational speakers, focusing on optimisation of both personal and professional performance. In webinar 1, Gerry gave us great insights into key actions and key focuses for all of us and lots of take home. And I know it was a very interactive session, so I look forward to everyone interacting with Gerry today. He certainly got everybody moving, including myself. So thank you very much, Gerry, and we look forward to the follow-up today. Our second speaker will be Dara Killeen. Thank you to Dara for joining us. Dara, as you know, was recently appointed as the FBD Machra Young Farmer of the Year for 2020. Dara is a dairy farmer from Aircourt in Galway, a recent new entrant to dairying, started with 95 in-calf heifers, I believe, in 2019, and is well over 150 cows milking and is looking forward to a busy calving season ahead. We very much look forward to listening to Dara and his insights for all of us. Our chair today is Council Member Catherine Heffernan. So Catherine will look after the proceedings and the Q&A. If you do have questions, and we do encourage them, please do put your questions in on the Q&A function, and Catherine will go through those later. But post your questions as the event happens, and they will be picked up as the event goes on. I would like to take this opportunity to sincerely thank our young members group. We have a very vibrant, active young members group, chaired by Niall Brennan. The group have done an awful lot for our young members, so I'd like to thank them for that and to wish them well for the rest of the year. If you have any ideas for our young members events, please do let myself know, president@asaireland.ie or Barbara in the office. I would like to take the opportunity also to thank Barbara, who is our kind of master of technology ceremonies in the background there. Barbara is in our office, so please do keep in contact. Just two quick call outs for everybody. We have a financial fitness webinar next Wednesday night at 8 o'clock in association with FBD. So please do take the time to look at that event. It's certainly something different and a good time of year for all of us to look at our financial fitness. And our podcasts continue to happen. We issue one podcast per month. We've now issued 5 with good feedback. So please do take the time to listen. As always, I thank you for your support of ASA. I thank you for your membership of ASA. Enjoy the morning, and again, thank you to both Gerry and Dara and Catherine. So have a good session all, and I'll see you later on.
Okay, so I'm just checking the registrations box. I know we've got a great crowd coming today. If you were with us last month, if you were joined, or sorry, not last month, last year at this stage, if you were with us all the way back in 2020, November 2020, just type "I was" into the chat box. If you were with us the last time, just type "I was" into the chat box. Let's see who was here. Okay, so a few people already popped it in. Just pop it in there really quickly. "I was" into the chat box. Excellent, lots of people. Okay, brilliant. And if you're new to us, if this is your first session with us under this umbrella of climbing the career ladder, just type "first timer" into the chat box. First timer, just type "first timer" if you weren't with us the last day, but you're joining us today. We've definitely 2 first timers, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, quite a few. Excellent. And we've just gone over 40 people already on. I know we have a few more joining us, but fantastic that we have so many here. I really want to make a difference. Maybe you heard about the last event. Maybe that's why you're here now today. Maybe you heard that it couldn't be that bad twice. Maybe that's why you're back, or maybe that's why you're here. And maybe the people that are back, maybe saying, "Gosh, Gerry, you better be better this time. I'll give you one more chance." But anyway, delighted that you joined us. And I want to make a big thank you to the ASA team. And I probably will forget some people, but I just want to acknowledge, because there's a lot of work. These things don't just happen. I've got the easy job. There's a number of people that have created not just this event, but lots of events to put forward for you, to bring you value. And just to call out some of them, just Catherine, I know, Niall, Barbara, Niamh, and Marie, and many, many other people are involved in this and all the other events. I see a question there, was part 1 recorded? My understanding is it was recorded. So I believe you can look back if you wish. Okay, so just want to acknowledge the team that have got us here today. my responsibility now to give you value for the investment of your time today. Before I do that, and before we talk about your future career, whatever that might be, I'd love you just to share with me, what's one thing in the career you're in right now? What's maybe one thing you love the most about what you're doing right now already in the career you're in? What's one thing you love about it? Just let me know in the chat box. I'd be very interested to find out what things you do love already about your flexibility. Okay, thank you. Just a bit of feedback. What's one thing that you love about your career right now? Friends in work and the people in work. Excellent, thank you. Working with knowledgeable people and with cows, love that. Interaction with different people, love it. That's an interesting answer, as you'll find out later on, interacting with different people. Okay. Being in a control after leaving my job to begin a new career path, excellent, okay. The intellectual challenge. I love the intellectual challenge of it. If there was one more thing that somebody loves, just share it. I'd love to get one more insight. One more thing that somebody loves. I know we've lots of people here, so I'm sure we've a few more people still to share. What's one more thing? Doing something different every day to try to challenge myself. Yeah, I believe we get happiness from growth is one of the areas we get happiness from. As somebody that was in a job for many, many years and I didn't challenge myself to grow, I got less and less motivated. I wouldn't be waiting for other people in your career to challenge you to grow. I would encourage you to take ownership of that yourself, because it's your time. It's not their time. It's your time in your life. Okay, I'm going to encourage you to take notes as we go through today. As I mentioned the last day, we've got 6 things. 6 things we're going to share. One of your colleagues, Derek Colleen, is going to come on, excuse me, at the end of this, just to share his insights. So I'm going to share a number of things with you. 2/3 of them we've already covered. So let me give you a really brief. If you weren't here the last time, and if you were, you'll remember these. We really dug into these 2 things the last time. We spoke about the value of making time for exercise. What value does making time? I mentioned a farmer friend of mine, a guy called Andrew Revington, and Andrew is big into exercise, and he's a very busy and a very big farm, very busy farmer, but he makes time for exercise. Why do you think he makes time? And in fact, exercise is a big priority on his farm. Why do you think that is? Please let me know. If Andrew was here right now, what do you think he would say? Why does he prioritize exercise in his farming? Just give me some answers in that when you're ready. In the chat. Clears his head, definitely. Any other reasons? Why do you think he prioritizes healthy body, healthy mind? Yeah. Mental health reasons. Yeah, absolutely. To be his best self. Absolutely. Yeah. It's not what it will cost us to make the time for exercise. It's how it helps us show up even better. I remember, as you can see, I'm a lot older probably than almost everybody, probably everybody here today. I'm 52 years of age. I remember I had a different business 15 years ago when the recession hit, and I prioritized exercise even more then. And I had lots of challenges going on in my business, but I used to run, still do thankfully, early in the mornings. So I'd be at my desk with all these major challenges because of the recession. Very resilient and very positive. I knew that would now more than ever I had to exercise. But if it works when things are really challenging, it'll work when things are not so challenging as well. It gives me more energy in my day. And I know for a fact, Andrew, who's on his feet all day, but even he does marathons, and those are long runs he has to do. But he said, Gerry, I have more energy now, even though I might run for an hour before I start the farm in the morning. He said, I have more energy, not less energy. It gives me more resilience, more confidence. Somebody said clears the head. It's also me time, as somebody's mentioned in the chat box as well. So we spoke about that. We also spoke about we don't get paid for time. We get paid for the value that we bring to the time that we're in front of people. So we can have academic skills, we can have technical skills, we can upskill to bring more value. Our attitude is a value, as you'll see in a video I'm going to play you shortly. Maybe putting yourself forward for things when other people in the business mightn't put themselves forward. Why would I do that? I'm not getting any more money. We get paid by value, not by time. I would encourage you, if you want to get to the next level, whatever you define that, next level in your current career, next level in a career, next level in another company, I would encourage you to make yourself more attractive to employers or make yourself more attractive to your customers. About 7 or 8 years ago, I decided to go back to college for 3 years, which was a major decision, major decision. But I knew I had to make, if I wanted to bring my career, my business to the next level, and I did, I knew I had to make myself more attractive to my customers, to my clients. So I went back to college for 3 years, and one element of what I did just a 3-year journey in college. But one element of it, 1 year of it was focused on coaching. And I brought that skill set to my clients. I didn't have that skill set before. My clients started to pay me more money because it was bringing even more value. We don't get paid by time, we get paid by value. So there are 2 things that we spoke about. We also spoke about the third one, and I'm going to remind you what that is now, but we didn't get into it. We're going to get into it today. So if you're ready for today and you're ready to take notes because you'll have forgotten 95% of what I've said by 12:30, I encourage you to write down things that you find interesting. Where did I go to college? I went to the Irish Management Institute. Just answer that question. So if you're ready to get into today, I'd love you to type "I'm ready" into the chat box. Just type "I'm ready." And we're going to get into number 3. I'm ready. Excellent. We're all ready to go. Okay. This one is PSS. If you watch the video, the promotional video, you might know what this stands for. Does anybody know what it stands for? PSS. Anybody know? What does PSS stand for? Anybody know? That's okay. I was on a webinar about 5 weeks ago. I was a guest on a webinar. There was 190 people on the webinar, and we were there to learn from this businessman. And he spoke for about an hour. And then afterwards, he said, "Is there any questions?" And I asked a question. And as I asked the question, I became the main on the screen, like I am now. They put me front and center. And they said, "Share who you are, share what you do, and ask your question." So I shared who I was. I shared what I do. And I asked a question. And I'd like to think I asked it very calmly, nice and slowly. I'd like to think I articulated it well because I knew I was on a stage. And the reason I felt I was able to do that was because it's my third recommendation to you. And somebody did get it in the chat. Public speaking skills. By asking that question, by being front and center, I was now potentially marking myself over that 90 seconds to 190 business owners because I put myself forward for something and because I had the public speaking skills. Now, don't take my word for this if you don't want to. I'd like to share with you a word, a message, a tip from a man called Warren Buffett. If you're familiar with who Warren Buffett is, just type "yes, I'm familiar" if you're familiar with who Warren Buffett is. If you're familiar, and if you're not, just say "I'm not." Just type "I'm not" into chat if you're not. Anybody not familiar? So Warren Buffett, lots of people are, a few people aren't, and that's fine. So Warren Buffett owns a company called Berkshire Hathaway. And the last time I checked, it was a company he founded in the mid 1950s. He's still alive and well and thriving. This video I'm going to share with you is about a minute long. It was recorded in 2012. So in this video, he's give or take 81 or 82 years of age. And you'll see the guy beside him. You might recognize the guy beside him. The guy beside him is a guy called Bill Gates. I'm sure many people would know as one of the co-founders of Microsoft. And there's a very young audience asking questions. I encourage you to really be tuned into the question that you hear the lady asking. Tune into who she is, where she is in her career, and especially I would encourage you to tune into the answer that Warren Buffett gives to the question that she asks him. So here we go.
I'm Kate Poulter. I'm an actuarial science major and I'm a junior. And you both have several managers working under you, so I was wondering what are some steps that a new entrant into the job market can take to accelerate their journey towards an upper level management position?
Yeah, well, one thing I will tell you that I didn't realize when I was getting out of school is how much the unusual person will jump out at you. I mean, you know, and it isn't because they got 200 IQs or anything like that. It's really because of just how they behave, you know, what they bring, the energy they bring, the commitment they bring, the quality of how they do things, how they treat the people around them, all kinds of things. But you will jump out much more than you might anticipate. One of the things you would want to be sure to do is, whether you like it or not, get very comfortable, it may take a while, with public speaking, for example. I mean, that's an asset that will last you 50 or 60 years, and it's a liability if you don't like doing it and are uncomfortable doing it, that also will last you 50 or 60 years, and it's a necessary skill. But a lot of the skills are just human skills. If you get the best out of people around you, that's a rare talent, and it doesn't correlate with IQ. It correlates with an attitude and toward the world and toward other people. And it's a talent that if you work at early and you're really conscious about it, you know, you don't have to show up other people. You know, you don't have to be smarter than they are or anything else. You want to bring out the best in them. It will pay huge dividends.
Interesting advice, I believe, from that gentleman. That's Warren Buffett. He spoke about public speaking skills being an asset, its value. He spoke about maybe not developing those public speaking skills as a liability. Interesting language. The last time I checked, incredibly successful business owner. The last time I checked, the company was worth $85 billion, billion with a B for Bravo, $1 billion. If you go into Warren Buffett's office today, there's only one qualification on his wall. He said it's the one that's had the most impact on his career. You even saw it in a little clip at the bottom of the screen there. And it's a course he took in 1951, an evening course with a gentleman called Dale Carnegie. And it was a public speaking skills course. I would encourage you to embrace this. I only embraced this at 37 years of age. It was, I would imagine you can see why, because it's what I do for a living now. It was life changing. Not just in terms of my career, my business. I'm sure you have no desire to be a professional speaker like I am. I'm talking about confidence. The confidence it gave me. It was such a challenge. I had to go to a hypnotist to speak to 4 people. And now, ironically, it's my entire business. Give me examples of where, I'll give you one to start off. Give me an example of where speaking skills, being able to speak well, will stand you in your career, in the world we live in right now. Where is public speaking relevant in your world? Just give me some examples. I'll give you an example. Leading teams, you heard him say it in the video. That's an example. Being able to stand up and communicate effectively, get the best out of people. What would some other examples be? Where is public speaking relevant? Please just share your insights, opinions when you're ready. Managing your peers, discussion groups, promotions and interviews. Absolutely. That's one I'd written down here. Brilliant. Communicating to your managers, discussion groups, speaking to groups, interviews. Yeah. Presentations, proposals, building knowledgeable awareness and knowledge. Communication, you need to be able to articulate effectively. Absolutely. It's also potentially podcasting. It's also virtual presentations. It's also maybe social media videos that you might see yourself doing in the future. Dara did one as part of this seminar. He communicated very articulately on a social media post. Simple example. By the way, this can be learned. I promise you, I was terrified of public speaking. It also gave me great confidence. Just a quick question. Who here feels, just type the letter Y into the chat. Who here might be a little bit nervous or fearful, if you're happy to share it, around public speaking? If you are, just type the letter Y into the chat. Do you know, whenever I ask that question, the chat box always bursts into life. So many of us, me included, I had a massive challenge with it. Because we have the time, I'd like to share with you 2 quick tips that might help you with public speaking skills. 2 quick tips. Number 1, I want to give you, I learned this almost a decade ago. I was looking for so many different strategies. I was writing a public speaking course recently because a lot of people come to me for confidence with public speaking. We do lots of workshops and that kind of thing. And I was recording a series of videos for a membership site that I run around public speaking. And I recorded this video only recently. And it's what I call, it's a breathing tip that I've learned. And I call it the 4-7-11. The 4-7-11. Here's what used to happen to me in my early days of speaking. I would be just like Anne-Marie was sharing today. So Anne-Marie, the equivalent of Anne-Marie would have opened up and to be saying, in 2 minutes time, we're going to invite this gentleman up called Gerry Duffy, and he's going to speak about X, Y, Z. And as that was happening, my heart would be going crazy in my chest because I was nervous. One of the strategies was this. And it's where you breathe in for 4 seconds. You hold for 7 seconds and you exhale slowly for 11 seconds. About 2 years ago, somebody asked me recently, do I ever get nervous now? About 2 years ago, I was about to address an audience on a Sunday morning in a hotel in Dublin. There was 400 people. I was on the stage. They were all having this brunch, and I was going to be brought on afterwards for 40 minutes. It was a very small room, they were packed into the room. And I was up on the stage, just finding my way. Nobody was looking at me because they were having their brunch, and I was kind of getting ready. And it's about 10 minutes before. They weren't taking any notice of me, but I was up there just getting a feel for the environment. And I suddenly got a bout of nerves. Hadn't happened to me in quite a while. I said, Gerry, okay, what's your strategy here? Because you give people strategies all the time. Let's find a strategy here. So what I did was I went backstage and I did this. I invite you to do it now with me. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to count you down from 3 and I'm going to go in 2, 3, 4. We'll breathe in for 4. We're going to hold for 7 and we're going to breathe out for 11. I learned this years ago. I've never forgotten it. I did it that time a couple of years ago and it just helped me so much. It calmed me. So here we go. I'm going to count down from 3. So you ready? Yeah, a bit of imposter syndrome. You're absolutely right. Here's a great quote, actually. Thank you for sharing that. Whoever said imposter syndrome. Here's another video I recorded for that course on public speaking. It's a quote from Eleanor Roosevelt, who was in the White House, the first lady of the White House from 1933 to 1945. She said this, it's a nugget. Nobody can make you feel inferior. You see, the fear of public speaking is a fear of judgment. That's what it is. It's a fear. People are nervous about what other people will think. So here's what Eleanor Roosevelt said. Nobody can make you feel inferior without your consent. I thought that quote was fabulous when I heard it. And I took it, I kept it, and now I use it as a strategy if I ever get this imposter syndrome that somebody mentioned. Anyway, let's do this exercise. Make yourself nice and comfortable. Let's do it really quickly. So when you're ready, I'm going to say 3, 2, 1, in 2, 3, 4. So 3, 2, 1, in 2, 3, 4, hold 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, out 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And then I would repeat it several times. So I would have done it 3 or 4 times that morning. I remember when I first learned this years ago, when people say, please welcome Gerry Duffy, my heart would be going through my chest. I practiced this. I heard it on the radio and I practiced it. And instead of doing 180 beats a minute, like going like this, my heart got down to 170 beats a minute. And then I practiced it some more and it got down to 160 beats a minute. And then it got down maybe another 5 beats. That was giving me back more control. This was one of the nuggets, one of the pieces of the jigsaw puzzle that helped me. Second tip around public speaking. It's a word beginning with the letter P. And I would encourage you to do lots and lots and lots and lots and lots. And not many people I know do this, and then they might show up nervous, and it's because they haven't done lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of this. What is this, you think? Correct. Somebody was very fast there. Practice. Absolutely. I would encourage you to practice. And if you want to really excel in this, really go to another level, when you're practicing, say you're practicing in your kitchen, use different objects in the kitchen to represent people that will be at the presentation. So if there's 4 chairs there, imagine, convince yourself that there are 4 people that are going to be actually at the presentation that you're doing. Your brain won't know the difference if you truly commit to the exercise. So when you do it, your brain will feel, well, we've done this before. So you might use the television, you might use the fridge, different objects represent different things. Yeah, so I see something out loud, not in your head. Yeah, I do live practices. Yeah, I do live practices for sure. Okay, so that's the one around public speaking tips. I hope you found that interesting. Now, next one, okay, number 4. Number 4, now this is a bit cryptic. NINW. Let me share with you about 2 months ago, I was delivering a talk to a group. And afterwards, just after the talk finished, I spoke about this at the talk because it was actually about career I was speaking about. And I spoke about this at the talk. Literally, this is just in early December. And the talk finished, 10 minutes after the talk finished, my phone rang. There's a guy called John. And John is a fellow speaker. And John said, Gerry, what are you doing tomorrow at 11 o'clock? I said, perhaps whatever you tell me I'm going to be doing, because at the moment I've nothing scheduled. He said, Gerry, please, can you do a talk? Can you fill in for me? I have this corporate engagement. I have a very important audience. This is a topic. I know you cover that topic. You know I cover that topic, but I can't do it. Can you do it? I know they'll be happy to run with you because I've already run it by them. I said, yes. Okay. Your network. This is what this stands for. Your network. This is somebody that I knew. Your network is your net, N-E-T, worth. So I was paid for that engagement the next day. The client didn't find me. A fellow speaker in my network found me. When I became a speaker a number of years ago, so this was in around 2010, 2011, sorry, 2011, yes. I got a phone call where somebody then hired me and flew me. That photograph, you can't really see it there, but that's a photograph of me doing a talk in Seville in Spain at a really big conference. There was about 200 people in front of me at that event. That was in late 2011. The person who rang me about that event, I hadn't spoken to them in 8 years. In 8 years. But because I knew them, they were in my network. Your network is your net worth. When I've just realized you probably can't see that screen. Sorry, I don't think I shared that screen properly. Sorry, apologies about that. Let me just share it with you here. This is the photograph I thought you were looking at. So there you go. That's the photograph of me doing a talk in Spain, in Seville. Okay. When I decided to become a speaker, to make that my career, so I made that decision in 2009. In 2010, I designed this marketing brochure. And one of the first places I went to was my old school that I'd left in 1985. And I asked them to hire me as a speaker. And they did. The principal and the deputy principal were teachers when I was there. They were still teaching. They're not there now because that story is like 10 years old. But at the time, they were teachers when I'd been there, even though I'd left in it, what's 85, 95, 2000. So 25 years later, I went back and 2 of the teachers were now the principal and the deputy principal. They hired me. Your network is your net worth. Who is your network? Please tell me in chat, who's your network? Who do you think your network is? What about when you start a new job with no network? That's a great question. So who is your network? You see, there's a perfect example. I was starting a new career, but well, I don't want to give the answer away. I want you to tell me, who is your network? You tell me. Colleagues, peers, definitely. Who else? Friends and family. Here's how I would summarize it. Are you ready? Everyone you know. Everyone who knows you is your network. Where have you met people in your life? I've got about 10 answers here. See how many you can get. Now, I appreciate, I knew this was coming. I knew we were going to speak about this. The ASA is a great example. People in the ASA are in your network. Assuming they know you, assuming you know them. So who else? Give me examples. Where have you met people in your life? Just give me 3 or 4 examples here really quickly when you're ready. Where have you met people in your life? College, definitely. Somebody wrote everywhere, absolutely. School, work. Where else? I want you to think outside the box on this one. Where else? Sport, great answer. Where else? Yeah, GA. Conferences, super. Local community, yeah. School, yeah. It could be any sport. We mentioned GA there. Could be the golf club, could be the tennis club, could be maybe Macron Pharma, could be another association that you're a member of. It could be groups within groups in the company you work in, mutual interest groups, great answer, absolutely. Yeah, and all of your friends and social media. With the current environment, isn't it more difficult to build a network? It's probably, that's a great question, but that event where I spoke, where I asked a question, that was like a webinar. I was just an attendee on the webinar, but they said, does anybody want to ask a question? I said, here's an opportunity now to extend my network. All those people got to see me and know me. So, albeit it was only for 90 seconds, but I'm going to prove to you the power of this in a minute. LinkedIn, great answer. Great answer. LinkedIn. I'm here because of this. I'm here because of this. There's somebody on this call today. I worked in his company. I think it could even be, it's definitely 2 years ago, if not 3 years ago. And he'd make contact with me about 4 or 5 months ago and said, Gerry, we'd love to have you work with the ASA. Your network is your net worth. I would encourage you, be open to meeting people, be open to connecting with people, lots of people. It's only years later, I'm going to prove this to you now, it's only years later you might see the impact of your network. It might be years before you meet your future employer. Let me share my screen again. A couple of years ago, a client flew me to Las Vegas to do some work. Let me rewind 6 months before that event. I get an email from a guy and he said, Gerry, the company I work for now, we're interested in talking to you about some challenges we have and how you might be able to support the senior team. I said, okay, so we jumped on a call. And I said, who are you? Oh, he said, do you not remember me? And I got to be honest, I didn't. He said, I met you at such and such an event. I come up to you afterwards, we chatted for 2 minutes. He said, I never forgot the presentation, you know, and you connect with me. You don't remember me. I didn't want to lie to him and say, of course I remember you. I didn't remember him, but he was grand with that. Now, that was in 2018, okay? And he flew me to Las Vegas 6 months later. The event was in November 2013 that he was speaking about. I spoke to this guy for 2 minutes in November 2013. He never forgot me. At the time, he had his own company. But years later, he'd moved into working for a company. And they had a particular challenge in their business that he felt, based on the talk he'd heard in November 2013, he felt I was the person. So 5 years later, he connects with me to help my career. It might be years before you meet your future employer, but you could meet them tomorrow. on a webinar as well. I would encourage you to be very consciously aware of this every day, and particularly the world we live in now, there's windows to extend your network every day. Number five, I would encourage you to set goals. Set goals. You hear people, you go into a coffee shop maybe this month, probably not now because of COVID, but a coffee shop last year, and you hear people saying, this is the year I'm going to advance my career. And then a year later, we meet them in the coffee shop. What are we likely to hear a year later, do you think? What are we likely to hear a year later? The same statement. Absolutely. I was this person. A great career is out there, but it's never going to come to you. This is the way. This is the way. I drifted for years, and it's because 2021 has no plans for me, and it's no plans for you. The future career is not planned for you unless you plan for it. Either you control the future or the future will control you. At the end of 2016, I wanted to do some work overseas in a particular country. And I'd been talking about it for a couple of years. It was in my head for a couple of years. And I realized that that's as far as it had gone. I said, Gerry, you know, unless you set a goal here, this is never going to happen. So I set a goal at the beginning of 2017, and it came to life in 2017 in a very significant way, where I spoke on a number of occasions in that country, all because I set goals. Now, there's two types of goals. There's what we call priority goals and performance goals. A priority goal might be, I want to run a marathon. But that's not a goal that's going to get you there. You got to have a performance goal. Well, here's the training program that's going to give me the ability to run the marathon. So you might want a career in a particular thing. That's the high priority goal, but you got to have the performance goal to match that. Here's the steps I need to do to get there, and invest in those steps, because nobody's going to come down the steps I will leave and give it to you. You've got to climb the steps. I call these HPs and HPAs. HP stands for high priority goals. HPAs stands for this. Are you ready? High payoff activities. High payoff activities. So here's a question I'd love you to ponder. Maybe write the question down. Today is not the day to ponder on it. Maybe tonight is, maybe next week is, you decide. But here's the question to ponder on. What does your career training plan need to look like? What does your career training plan need to look like? Now, my final one. This is a strange one. You might say, Gerry, where are you going with this one? It's quite a long one. Actually, tell me which one, if there was one that stood out for you right now, which one is the most, for you, which one is the one that stands out the most to you? If there was out of this. So make time for exercise. We get paid by value, public speaking skills. Network is net worth, setting goals. Oh, people, the networking one seems to have really struck a chord. Isn't that interesting? Okay, we're going to come back to this in a couple of minutes anyway. Okay. The goals, somebody said the goals, setting goals, a few people. Okay, I'm going to, public speaking skills for somebody else. Excellent. Okay. Networking and value. This one, I believe, is difficult to start off. Okay, thank you for that. So I'm going to come back to that question in a minute. But here's one I would highly recommend. Are you ready? If you want to write it down. Do more than you If you were to predict what the rest of this is, what is it? Just give me a prediction. What do you think it is? Do more than you. What do you think the rest of it is? Great answer. I saw the first one. Need to, are asked to do, think you can, are expected to do. Yeah. Do more than you get paid to do. Do more than you get paid to do. Why do you think I'm suggesting this? Why do you think I'm suggesting this? Do more than you get paid to do. Why would you do more? Well, if you give me 100 euros, I give you 100 euros worth of value. Does that not make sense? Why would I give you 110 euros worth of value if you're only paying me for 100? Good reputation. Why else? To stand out. Any other reasons? Puts you ahead of everybody else. Be the unusual person in the previously mentioned. I love that. Linking back to Warren Buffett's video. That's how easy it is to stand out. I remember in that year when I went overseas to work, I met this guy. He hired me to do some work overseas, and I spent some time with him. And we were doing a bit of work on an ongoing basis over a very short period of time. But when I was there, I got to know him, and I wrote down things that he was really interested in. And about 6 months later, I'm back in Ireland, and about 6 months later, I remembered a particular interest that he had, and I saw this article. Now, I'd been long paid, like he paid me 6 months earlier. I'd moved on, done lots of work with other companies or whatever. But I saw this article. I said, gosh, he'd love that. So I sent it to him. I said, listen, I remember when we were working together 6 months ago, I said, you told me you love this particular topic. I read this article. I think you'll really enjoy it. Heard nothing for a few days. But then I got an email. Gerry, thank you so much. I can't believe you remembered that I had an interest in that. And by the way, that article, oh, brilliant. Thank you so much. By the way, you probably haven't heard, but I'm moving back to Ireland next year. And when I move back there, I want to meet you because I'm going to be heading up a big team there. I want to talk to you about working with that team. That's how easy it is to stand out. Do more than you get paid to do. I was on a webinar recently, a guest on a webinar. There's a guy, an Irish guy, that's lived in the United States since 1986. I've been following this guy for about 15 years because there was a documentary on him about 15 years ago on television. And I've been following him ever since because he really struck a chord with me. His name is Brian Buffini, and he doesn't sound Irish, but he is Irish. He's from Dublin. Left school, left Ireland at 18. He's done phenomenally well in America, like phenomenally well. On this webinar late last summer, he was on it for an hour. He told this story about, you might be wondering, what does that look like? I'm going to give you an example of what it looks like. He told this story about when he was 16 years of age. His family, the business in Ireland, so his grandfather was a decorator, painter decorator, and his dad was in the same business. Now, he's not in that business now. He's in a different business. He's in the real estate business. When he was 16, he went to work, his first day at work. So this would have been probably in the early 1980s. He was sharing last summer his secrets to success, his tips. Now, he's built a massive business in the United States, massive. Normal guy doing things to an outstanding level. Success is a few simple disciplines practiced every day. It's doing simple things to an outstanding level. That's how you stand out. Water doesn't boil at 99 degrees. But if you're willing to bring that final degree to it, you can drive steamers and change the world. He's 16 years of age, first day at work. just a part-time job with his granddad. They're decorating this house. Brian is sent upstairs to paint a room. His granddad comes up at the end of the day to inspect his work. Walks into the room. Young Brian, 16 years of age. See, granddad, look at the work I've done. And he said, my granddad, this is Brian speaking last year. He said, my granddad, I said to my granddad, what do you think? My granddad made me answer a question. And he said, I've been answering the question ever since. And he said, this is one of the reasons why he's been so successful for the last 35 years. He's built a huge business in the States, and a completely different business, but it's the principle. And his grandfather simply asked him this question, Brian, the work you've done in this room today, would you be proud to put your name to the work? Would you be proud to put your name to the work you've done in this room today? I think that's a great question and a great focus for us. To be proud of the work we do. To look at the work and say, that's my best. That's not excellent, that's outstanding. What I try and do, my goal is to deliver. I don't know if you agree or not, but it's my goal. Every talk I do is not to be excellent, because excellent speakers sit amongst lots of excellent speakers. I try and hit the final degree in every presentation I do. I've never shown that video ever to an audience until today, the Warren Buffett video. Never, ever, 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 ever have I shown it. But I sourced that video specifically for this audience today. And that, for me, that video, I try and improve by 1%. Every talk I do, I try and raise the bar just 1%. If I do 10 talks a month, and if I really live that, I improve by 10%. You didn't see me 10 years ago. You didn't see me 5 years ago. But I'd like to think that I'm a much better presenter than I was 5 years ago, 3 years ago, even a year ago. But all it is doing simple things that maybe other people are not prepared to do. Do more than you get paid to do. And watch what happens. Now, Warren Buffett spoke about the quality of how you do things. If you watch that video, if you find that video, you'll see him say those words. It's the quality of how you do things. So there we go. So we're going to do, I'll probably be finishing the next 6, 7, 8 minutes, Dara, because I know Dara's coming in next. So, but just before we do, I'm interested to know because I'd love to think that these are valuable to you. I've seen value in all of them. But what I'd love to find out from you is if you were to take 2 of these forward and keep them front and center, I'd love you to consider keeping them all so you can check in with these maybe in a month's time, in 3 months' time, in 6 months' time. Because I believe personally, I've seen absolute evidence of the value of these. I'm very privileged to be a very busy speaker. I'm very privileged to work with some incredible audiences. I'm doing a talk, a big event this weekend, a really big event this weekend that I'm co-organizing. It's called 2021 Momentum, 2021momentum.com. But I have an audience on Monday morning. We have 1,000 people on the webinar. And it was so full, the company that's organizing it rang me the other day and says, Gerry, we're thinking of opening another because we can only take 1,000 people. We can't believe it's filled so quickly. Can you do another one in the afternoon? I said, of course I can. I checked with him yesterday. They already had 700 people registered for the second one. So potentially I'm going to be in front of 2,000 people on Monday. But the reason that I work with that company, they didn't know me 4 years ago. I must have stood out to them somewhere. They saw me somewhere. And I've done a lot of work with them over the last number of years. I guarantee you that one of these, if not all of these principles, got me that audience next Monday. I guarantee you, and he's here today, the gentleman who put me forward for this. I'd like to think that one or more of these made me memorable for that person to recommend me to the ASA committee. Now, much more important, What two, if you were to keep two front and center to guide you to the next stage of your career, which two would you keep front and center? I'd like you to reflect on that for a couple of seconds. And then when you're ready, just type into the chat box. Here's what I want you to do. In the chat box, just do something like this. 1, and then tell me what it is. 2, and then tell me what it is. Okay? I invite you to do that now when you're ready. I've just seen a lovely comment in the chat box. Thank you for that. Somebody joining us at Momentum this weekend. Thank you. So the answers are coming in. Let's see what you feel is valuable for you. Okay. Public speaking and the network. For somebody, setting goals, improve my public speaking skills, do more than you get paid to do. My network, do more than you get paid to do. Network as well. Setting goals, public speaking skills. Let me remind you of all 6 if you wish. Goals and the public speaking. Set goals, do more. Public speaking skills is very popular. Excellent. If I can do it, trust me, you can do it. I was so afraid of public speaking. I don't know if I shared this previously. I was so afraid. I had to go to a hypnotist to speak to 4 people 15 years ago, 16 years ago now. So I see somebody network, do more than you get paid to do. Really like the story about being proud of the work you do. Yeah. If you want to check out that guy, Brian Buffini is his name. I feel like I do some of these things anyway. I love that. I need to bring them. Yeah. So some are more important as I need to bring them in. Love that. Awareness of the overall picture and incorporating goals. Yeah. Love that. Thank you. Lovely. Thank you for that lovely comment about my presentation. Thank you. And I'm very easy to find. If you want to reach out and ask me a question, I'm very easy to find. You get me on social media. My email is on my website. I think my number is on my website. But anyway, okay, delighted. I know I'm a few minutes early. It might give us some time for more questions later on because I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to be with you till 12:30. Somebody really found them super helpful. Excellent. Delighted. They're nothing without you guys. I like to make it a two-way communication rather than just sit and listen to me. I like to share ideas, find out what you find interesting, prove that it works. And then the reason why I asked you to do the exercise at the end, that's the most important exercise of all. That's the most important thing of all, is what you will take from this. It's not about me, speaker, speaking. It's not about the trainer training. It's about the learner learning. Here's a maths question, and I'm going to hand it over to Dara. Actually, if you got value, just type "I did" into chat. If you're really glad that you invested in the last 2 sessions, or just today, and you can, if you missed the last one, you can watch it back. You did. Excellent. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. But it's a little bit of tough love, and I'm saying this out of respect to what needs to happen, okay? So here's a maths question. I'm so glad you got value, but that's not enough. Here's the maths question. It's a riddle. And let's see if you can figure out why this riddle, why am I sharing this riddle with you? Are you ready? 3 birds sat on a wall. 2 decided to leave. How many were left? Type your answer into chat. 3 birds sat on the wall, 2 decided to leave. How many were left? I'm seeing 1, I'm seeing 1. None. Okay, difference of opinion. 3. Okay, nobody thinks 2 anyway. So I can confirm one of those answers is correct. It's not 2. So I've seen a few people, somebody else thinks it's 3. So I'll give it to you once more. Listen to the words I say very carefully. Are you ready? 3 birds sat on a wall, 2 decided to leave. How many were left? And somebody has got the correct answer. In fact, they've proven they have the correct answer. The correct answer is 3. Because it depends, as somebody says, I never said they actually left. I just said they made a decision. So why am I sharing that riddle with you? You please tell me. Why am I sharing that riddle with you? And then I'm going to hand it over to Dara. Action is key. Knowledge is only power if we use the knowledge. I'm absolutely delighted to hand over now to one of your peers. A gentleman, most of you probably know him. Those of you that don't, you're about to get to know him. He's achieving wonderful things in his career. I invite you to listen now to one of your colleagues, Dara Killeen.
Thanks, Gerry. I was doing my 4-7-11 now in preparation for this. So I know you mentioned my my social media video yesterday and how it was clearly presented, but I suppose it doesn't come easy. It's, as you said, it's down to practice. And I suppose one of the things I would do in preparation for public speaking is I would record myself and see what I think of it and how I can improve on that. And you know, I suppose a lot of the preparation I did for the Young Farmer of the Year competition, I would have said in a room talking out loud about myself, which was very hard to do. But I think when it came to the point for the interviews, I was quite comfortable with the content because I had, I suppose I had memorized it so well, and it prepared me quite well for it. So yeah, thanks for the invitation. I'd just like to say well done to everybody who has joined. You know, to be successful in your career, you have to have an attitude of continuous learning, and that learning will take place in many different formats, be it webinars, podcasts, reading books, reading the newspapers for whatever industry you're involved in, social media. It's just it's a constant attitude, and it's something as farmers, I suppose, we're always learning. There's new technologies coming out, new guidelines, and you have to keep in touch with everything that's out there. And yeah, so I took notes, Gerry, as you recommended. I have 2.5 pages of notes that I've wrote down while your speech was ongoing. So I suppose I'll just go through a bit of these. Personal development was one of the things you spoke about at the start, and that's huge, I suppose. And it goes back to constantly wanting to learn and improve yourself. And, you know, you might find sometimes, and I know I found it in my own journey, my own career, you might learn something at a time and you think, oh God, that's completely irrelevant to what I'm doing at the minute or where I want to be. And fast forward 4, 5, 6, 7 years, and you'll find that anything you learned in the past, while it mightn't have been quite relevant then, it'll stand to you in the future. So I would say always take notes, write it down. One of the big things for me is I have a diary. So I suppose I document what I learn at the time, and I'd often review this. So yeah. Another thing that stands out for me is the thought of an overnight success. So I suppose my name has come to the fore in the last few months when I was awarded the Young Farmer of the Year title, but I suppose I've probably had a 10-year career in farming at this point, and lots of groundwork has been put in at that over the years. So, you know, nobody is an overnight success. Well, it might appear that, but there's years and years of, I suppose, networking, goal setting, achieving your goals built into that. And, you know, I watched the previous webinar and some people had questions about, let's say, not enjoying the current role they were in, and asking Marcus, was there anything he could advise people to do in that situation? So, like, I just wrote it down there. I've had 12 different jobs since I finished school, be it on a part-time basis to supplement income while in college, or, you know, just through traveling. I was in New Zealand for a couple of months and worked there, and in America for a couple of months. So again, building my network. But I didn't enjoy all of these jobs. You know, there were certain parts that were physically challenging, mentally challenging, maybe the pay wasn't too good. But like, I've learned from each of these jobs. And I think the thing I learned the most was it taught me what I didn't want to be in life and what career path I didn't want to follow. So now that I'm finding a place where I'm very content, I'm very glad that I have these other experiences to look back on. And I suppose it gives you a reassurance that you've made the right decisions when you do this. So that comes back to my next point then again, which is to document your journey, look back on it, review it, and give credit where it's due. And I mean, we can be very harsh critics on ourselves. If you're somebody that's very motivated type of person, sometimes you can be a bit harsh on yourself. So if you've documented it and you can see where you've come from and where you're going to and where you are now, I would just say don't be too harsh on yourself. Yeah, give credit where it's due. I suppose another point, Gerry, that I heard you, and I would definitely like to back it up, is to get out of your comfort zone. It's very easy to stay there and plateau, but if you want to get ahead, sometimes you have to put yourself under pressure. So I suppose a few times I would have gotten out of my comfort zone. I suppose where I probably started to build a network was originally I was asked to do a social media takeover for the Irish Farmers Journal. And you know, the idea of doing it and agreeing to do it is fine, no more than today. It's when you're actually faced with doing it that you're like, oh God, what have I got myself in for? You feel out of your depth and that kind of thing. But each time you get through it, there's a great sense of satisfaction that you might have helped somebody else, or the interactions you've had from somebody else will have helped you. Again, the Young Farmer competition, I had thought about doing it for a few years. I wasn't content with where I was with my farm business at the time. So I said I'd wait, I'd set my goals, achieve the goals. And at that point, if I was happy enough to go ahead, I would go ahead. But it did put me under a bit of pressure. But I suppose I had documented my journey. So I looked back at what I had done, and I put my story together. And, you know, when I had come to the point for the interviews, I was glad I had put myself under pressure at the previous dates, and it really stood to me. Yeah, following on from that, Gerry, just of course, the chat box is open. So if anybody does have questions, feel free to add them in at this point. Yeah, the next point, Gerry, would be on to goal setting. So I suppose for me as a farmer, we're in a business that's very measurable, dairy farming specifically, in that we have various key performance targets that we can focus year on year. So I suppose they are actually goals in themselves, in that we want to improve each year from the previous. So they would be, I suppose, business goals. And then you also need your personal goals, because for me anyway, a successful farm business is fine, but I need a bit more motivation than just chasing a KPI. So I suppose I need a motivation in that if my farm business is going well and I'm making money, how can I put that to the benefit of me and my family? So I suppose one of my big goals and motivators is my family. So I'm engaged to Beatrix and we have a 7-year-old daughter. So I suppose one of my goals that focuses me on my business is to provide them with everything they need, and we can have live the lifestyle that we would want to live. So that would be a big driver for my goals. But I would set goals at the end of every year, start of every year, and review them. I know I wrote down some notes there about the goals, that the goals need to be measurable, real, achievable, and realistic. And you need to write them down, because if you don't write them down, they're just a thought or a dream, and they're not accountable. So, you know, it's very hard to achieve something when it's not set in stone. Whereas I find for myself, if they're written down and visual, I would keep them in my diary or in the notes on my phone. Just, you know, if I have a target for a month and I don't get it, it's why I would review it. Why did I not get it? Let's say if there was certain things involved in the farm, like let's say how much meal we're feeding to the cows is one that a lot of people would focus on. And if I get to the year end and feel that that figure isn't where it should have been, I need to review my goals, see what happened, where did it go wrong, and how can I get better for the next year. Yeah, another one then, Gerry, would be, Gerry and everybody else, of course, would be mentors. So let's say this is not just for farmers, but anyone involved in the industry, is that if you can have a mentor that will inspire you, and someone that you could bounce ideas off, or in a private setting, ask questions that you feel maybe, I know just in terms of our discussion groups now, let's say I'm a new member to most of them because we've just started our dairy career. So you can often find yourself afraid to ask a question for fear of asking a silly question, and then roll on a few minutes later and somebody else might ask the same question and get a great response. Whereas if you have someone like a mentor or peers that you're very confident in, that you can ask these questions to build up your knowledge, it will really help you. And I suppose from my own experience, anyone I've asked, let's say I haven't picked up the phone and rang anybody and say, oh, would you be my mentor? I would make contact, ask different questions, see if the feedback, if they're comfortable giving it. And if they are, I suppose I would build on that. And I've been very lucky that I've had some great mentors to date. And from my own experience, successful people are really happy to pass on their success. And it's one of the things that I would like to see happen, I suppose, in my 1-year term as the Young Farmer of the Year, is that if I can help out somebody else along their way, I'd be delighted to do so. And, you know, a mentor, it doesn't have to be too rigid of a title. I mean, you can have people on social media. I would often interact with people on Twitter or Instagram, and send them a direct message, ask them a question, and, you know, you get positive feedback. And it's a great way to learn too, is learn from people who you feel are the type of people you would like to be in 10 years time. So if you can see them having a successful career, a successful business, successful family life, whatever it is that motivates you, reach out and see if they could give you some feedback. And for me, that's a big part of what I do, I suppose. And next point to that, I suppose, leads on from that, is having an open mind. So I suppose it's one of the things I was complimented on by the judges in the Young Farmer competition, was having an open mind. And I suppose we changed our farm business completely. So we went from a dry stock enterprise to a dairy enterprise. And I mean, credit to both my parents, they also had an open mind. So I think that's where I get my open mind, that they were had no objections to what we wanted to do on the farm. And I mean, our industry is constantly evolving, and I just had a flick through the names there and I recognize some, and I know a lot of them are actively involved in the industry. And if we don't have an open mind, it's hard to see how we will succeed, because the world is constantly changing and we need to keep in touch with all the, you know, new technologies, new guidelines, new restrictions. So keeping an open mind is very clear. Just another quote, and it's one of the ones I keep in the notes on my phone, is having a vision. So stubborn on vision, flexible on detail. So once you know your end goal, how you actually get there is not hugely relevant. But once you have a clear focus of a vision or an end goal or a career or a job you're chasing, let that be your focus. And I mean, if you have to deviate, take up a job that's probably not the one you want, but you feel it will benefit your CV or give you experience, go for it. And yeah, just keep an open mind on that. Other things then, everybody would be continuous learning. So for me, that's been crucial for me. I've had to learn an entire new farm skills and business skills, management skills, and continuous learning has been huge for me. So doing courses, listening to podcasts, audiobooks, webinars. I mean, everybody has logged on here today, and you're taking part in your continuous learning journey. So your learning does not finish once you leave college, and just keep that going, and it will continuously stand to you. Yeah, another one then that stands out for me, I suppose, part of our continuous learning, I did a course a few years ago with a woman called Linnea Ryan. So it was a strategic business course. And she brought in a very, very successful farmer speaker to give us a talk. And one of the things that he said really hit home with me was your third place. So for him, his first place and second place in no order was his work life and family. But your third place is your escape, be it your fitness, your running, your hurling, camogie, football, whatever it is. It's something outside of your family and your business that gives you a little escape. And it's very important. And I found that just converting the farm, and we had a dry stock enterprise going on as well, and we were doing a lot of building work, and it was a very intense environment. And you know, the third place for me at that time, time was limited really, we were under pressure, but I found it great just to get away. So we went to Amsterdam for a weekend, and just even trying to get away off farm for a day a week, go to Galway, go to the shops, anything like that. It doesn't have to be anything specific, but just try and keep time in your life at the busy times for your third place. Sport, of course, is the third place for many. And you know, Gerry, you spoke of that man that took up the running, and why did he do it? And for me, I suppose sport, physical exercise, stimulate the body, stimulate the mind. And I'm lucky to be involved in agriculture and in dairy farming, that, you know, physical exercise is a large part of our daily lives. So very rewarding part of the job is that physical exercise for me. One of the other things I would say to yourself, sorry, Alexa is talking to me here, I have to turn her off. One of the other things I would say to people is to back yourself. So, I mean, if you don't back yourself, why would anybody else? And I suppose it's something that it's resonated with me over the last few years. I mean, you can find yourself almost with imposter syndrome. So I'm quite new to dairy farming, even though I've been farming a long time, and I find myself to be awarded the title of Young Farmer of the Year. And, you know, when the dust had settled on that, I was saying to myself, how did this happen? Like, how did I end up here? It was beyond my wildest dreams. But, you know, I backed myself in the interviews. I've backed myself by, I suppose, changing my business over and borrowing quite a good lot of money to get the farm set up. And if I wasn't going to back myself, why would anybody else back me? So, you know, develop your career, do your continuous learning, set your goals, and then why wouldn't you back yourself? You've put all the measures in place to back yourself. Yeah, the next thing I wrote down, Gerry, again from my notes, is public speaking. So I suppose it's a skill that I'm probably quite comfortable on at the minute, but I must tell everybody I'm the youngest children is 7. So, you know, if you don't keep your mouth, or if you keep your mouth shut at that, you won't get too far. And, you know, it's not always easy. It is a skill. And it's not something I always would have been comfortable with. But I suppose over the years, let's say through involvement with sports teams probably was the start. And getting used to speaking to your teammates in the dressing room is probably an easy one for everybody that we could make a start on. You know, then at the discussion groups, as I mentioned already, it's probably the fear of saying the wrong thing is what holds us back. But I mean, if you can back yourself, and, you know, oftentimes the hardest part is actually getting started and going to your first few meetings, your first few conferences and that, and addressing people. And once you get used to it, it's not actually that hard. And you just focus on, I suppose, your message you want to deliver rather than who you are delivering it to. And it is a skill, and maybe if you are struggling with it, it would be one of the good continuous learning methods you could look into, is possibly doing a public speaking course. Or, I mean, there's a lot of information there available at our fingertips, even to go on YouTube and Google public speaking skills. You know, it's very easy one for you to get hold of. The next one then would be that I took notes on was network is your net worth. And that has really resonated with me again. Let's say in our industry, a lot of our learnings is from our discussion groups and learning from other farmers, let's say Chagas advisors, facilitators and all of that. And the biggest learning for me in my network has been being involved in good discussion groups. I mean, it's transformed our farm here. It's added huge worth to our business, you know, and just being involved in people who are successful, that drives success. So success drives success. So definitely align yourself with successful people, build your network. I suppose I've been a couple of years building my own network. Let's say just to roll it back. So the original thing I would have done to build my network was I did at the time it was a Snapchat takeover from the Farmers Journal. So that's something probably quite small in the grander scale of things, but that led into me being invited to write a Farmers Contributor article for the Farmers Journal. From that, I suppose my name would have gotten out there. I was taken on as a focus farm with my co-op, and in turn invited into a very prestigious discussion group. And that has all built my network. And I found that when I was in the judging stages for the Young Farmer competition, I knew that some of the judges had been aware of me and my story because of the network that I had built for myself. So yeah, that's probably it on that point. Just back to goals then was the last bit I had taken notes on. So Gerry had his own version of the goals, and for me, I simplify it very much, and you need your personal goals and your business or career goals. So for me, the business goals are the driver of my business goals are to have successful personal goals. So for me, I want my goals to drive my business so that it's successful and allows me to financially achieve my personal goals. So just again, and it's very important, your goals need to be measurable, real, achievable, realistic, and write them down and review them. And excuse me, goals need actions. So it's very good writing them down, but if you don't have actions on how you're going to achieve your goals, then again, they're worthless. So I would say write down your goals and write in 2 or 3 subpoints on how you are going to achieve your goals. So that's kind of all the notes I've taken, and I suppose I will review these notes, Gerry. I 100% agree that they are so important, is taking notes, documenting your journey, use your diary or whatever it is works for you. Yeah, and build on that. So I'd like to pass it back to Catherine and open it up to questions.
Thanks very much, Dara and Gerry. That was brilliant. So just a reminder there that we are open there for any questions that want to come through. So I have got a couple of questions through here for Gerry and Dara, but I will start off by asking Gerry. So Gerry, getting in front of people to practice public speaking at the moment in the environment we're in at the minute is quite challenging. So how would you advise people to move towards this?
So great question. I was using a new form of technology last April or May, and so I wasn't familiar with this particular technology, and I had a really big event coming up and the client insisted I use this particular technology and I wasn't familiar with it. So what I did was I rang around 4 or 5 of my friends and I asked them, could they be online the following evening at 5:30 for 30 minutes, because I wanted to practice on a real audience. I said, I want you to play a real audience. So I just picked up the phone and I rang. My sister was on it. There was a friend of mine who's heavily involved in sport was on it. There was a client on it. There was a friend on it, and I can't remember who the other person was. The 30 minutes ended up taking an hour and a half. And the reason it took an hour and a half was because it was my first time using the technology, I made loads of mistakes. Don't practice on your real audience. Practice on an audience that you find yourself. So I just simply picked up the phone. It could be your family. You know, it could be 3 or 4 of your siblings or your cousins. It could be a couple of work colleagues, maybe people that are in your team. I would imagine a number of people here have colleagues. It could be 4 or 5 ASA colleagues, people that you might know in the ASA. Just reach out to them. I think you might be surprised how quickly you could get 3 or 4 or 5 people. And what I would encourage people to do as well is when you're practicing in front of people, convince yourself it's a real audience. Convince yourself, like if I'm speaking at a conference, I speak in normal times, a couple of times a year in Croke Park at big events. A week before, I'll be in my house or in my office. I will convince myself in my brain that I'm actually in Croke Park. And I will act as if there's like 200 or 300 or 400 people in front of me, and I'll scan the room, even though I might be in a tiny office. I'll pretend that this is the Hogan Suite of the Croke Park Stadium. That means when I go the following week, my brain will recognize, listen, we did this last week. The brain, I find, doesn't recognize the difference if we truly commit to the exercise.
Okay, brilliant, thanks. And I have another question here for you, Dara. How would you advise younger graduates to actively get themselves out there? And also, what would you see in, you say you reach out to mentors. What do you see in a good mentor?
Okay, I'll answer the mentor part first. What would I see in a good mentor? I suppose for me and in the industry I'm involved in, so it's somebody who's implementing the farm system I want to implement at a very high level. So how do you get aware of these people? I suppose it's through asking the question of people in the industry. Let's say Teagasc officials for me now, or somebody selling products into different farms. I'd say who's doing this at a high level, and could you put me in touch with them? I mean, social media is huge for me. It's probably the one area I find best for that, is you can see what people are up to on their farms if they're willing to share it, and you can reach out to them at that point. And what was the first part of that, Catherine?
How would you advise younger graduates to actively get out there?
Okay, yeah. Yeah, that's probably a tricky one. I suppose I took every opportunity that was ever made available to me. And it wasn't so much about self-promotion. It was about probably, again, building a network and building my education as much as anything. Do you know, I did a good few social media takeovers for different agricultural companies and that kind of thing. Social media, again, I suppose LinkedIn, even though it's not too relevant for me in what I'm at, but LinkedIn would be huge. Um, yeah, I mean, one of the biggest things I did that I got to reach with people was actually a Twitter takeover for the Ireland's Farmer Twitter account. So, I mean, there would be certain takeovers for the ASA, for the Farmers Journal, anything like that. I suppose reach out to people and ask, say, hey, this is my story. I've got something to tell. Would you be willing to let me share it? So you have to be proactive about it, really. Nobody is going to come to you looking for something unless what you're doing is really exceptional. So be proactive and ask people, yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah, I think proactive is the key to it all. Gerry, there's a question here. How do you feel is the best way to motivate yourself to leave your comfort zone and push yourself further on? When working from home, it can be quite difficult.
Well, at the end of the day, I talk about a thing called the 4 keys to success. And yes, we might feel home is more difficult, but at the end of the day, that's a story, I believe, that we might be telling ourselves. And if we want things to be different, well, then we have to maybe go through the formula of the 4 keys to success. And the 4 keys to, it's like, imagine I'm playing a game of football. I'm playing in the county final. I've been picked to play in the county final, and I'm the cornerback. And they put the marquee corner forward, and it's my job to mark him. First minute he scores a goal, my head goes down. This isn't going to be my day. We're going to lose. I'm not good enough. How do I get picked? Now, that's a story that's going on in my head. If I want things to be different, got to change the story, because if I continue to live in that story, this working from home is difficult, well, then I'm going to keep getting what I'm getting. So we got to change the story. And if we change the story, the first thing we need to do before we take actions, which is so right, but what Dara mentioned is, but just before we get there, what will get us to good actions is the second stage of the formula, which is your attitude. Well, that he scored a goal in the first minute. He's not going to score anymore. Now I've changed my attitude. From there, if I'm saying home is difficult, and if I continue to do the things that I was doing in terms of, maybe not cleaning the room, the environment in which I'm working, and maybe that's feeding into my psychology. This room is a mess. Well, maybe clean the room. Because we got to take new actions or better actions. That's the third stage of the formula: story, attitude. If I keep marking him the way I marked him in the first minute, I'm going to keep getting what I'm getting. I've got to do something different or something better. So new or enhanced actions, which more often than not will lead us to the fourth stage of the 4 keys to success, which is better results: story, attitude, action, new or enhanced actions, better results.
Yeah, very good. And on from that then, Gerry, what do you see the biggest pitfall for people who are not achieving their goals?
Who are not achieving their goal? The biggest pitfall? Maybe, Dara spoke about it, maybe being more open-minded. I love that example that Dara gave about being more open-minded. And a simple example for me, I'm not getting this career progression. Why won't they pick me for that? Well, maybe go and surround yourself with people who might open your mind to, maybe, why do you think I'm not getting it? Go to your manager and say, why aren't you hiring me for the job? I'm very open to hearing it. So to be that kind of person that's open to feedback. I talk in some workshops I do about the different types of people to surround yourself with to help you achieve your goals. One or two of these might be of value here, Catherine. People, and I'll mention 2 in particular. Number 1 is people who have skills to teach you. Number 2 might be relevant if you feel you're not achieving. Get somebody to hold you accountable to what you might need to do to get to the next stage. People who inspire you mightn't be as relevant here. Skills to teach, hold you accountable, inspire you. People who tell you the truth. That's where this came into my mind a minute ago. So maybe being open to, if things are not happening, maybe ask a colleague, maybe ask an ASA member, why do you think I'm not getting picked for this, or whatever it might be. So that's people who tell you the truth. Dara mentioned this, people that you might see yourself in 10 years' time. I call those people who think and operate at a level that you wish to think and operate at. I think of Ryanair. Ryanair 30 years ago was not the airline we know today. in fact, they were in a very difficult position. And Tony Ryan, who was one of the co-founders, sent a guy called Michael O'Leary over to America to spend time with a guy called Herb Kelleher. And Herb Kelleher was the CEO of Southwest Airlines, which was the biggest airline in North America. They had 400 flights every single day. That's how big they were. And this is like 30 years ago, so I can't imagine how many they have now. But Herb taught Michael everything that was making Southwest a success. And Michael came back and implemented a lot of those things. So people who think and operate at a level that you wish to think and operate at. And the last one is yourself. So surround yourself. So a really good attitude. Dara mentioned about backing yourself. Why wouldn't you back yourself? You know, so I thought some of Dara's nuggets there were so relevant. I think that, like, we're talking about the same things. We're just presenting them, both Dara and I, through our view of the world. But I think we're very aligned in what we believe are the steps that will help people on this call today.
Yeah, certainly. Okay, so I've just asked 2 more questions there before we wrap things up. So Dara, for a graduate in a career that they're unsure of where they see themselves in the future, I suppose what would you advise them to do or look into?
Yeah, probably took me a good while to settle on where I wanted to be and what I wanted to do. But I suppose when you're young and you don't have too many commitments, I would encourage you to get outside the box. Let's say, do a bit of traveling, see if you could get jobs in different areas of the same field in other countries. It will give you experience. You know, don't limit yourself to just one type of job. If you feel that's all that's available to you, I would say get out there, try other things. I mentioned the amount of different jobs and that I have had over the years, and I would have learned from each of them, and you'll pick up new skills, and it will help you decide exactly what area you want to be in. So yeah, keep an open mind, get out there, travel if you can, and yeah, just be open to new experiences. It will help you down along the line. Yeah.
Brilliant. And on from that, then I have a question here. Dara, where do you see yourself in 5 years' time? I suppose it's the dreaded question everybody gets asked.
Yeah, I was asked that by the judges in the Young Farmer competition, and I answered it by saying, well, if I rolled back 10 years, I was in New Zealand working on a dairy farm. We were sheep farming at home. I didn't like dairy farming at the time. It was too big for me to scale over there. So, you know, fast forward 10 years to where we are today, I never thought that would have happened. So I wouldn't limit myself to just saying I'll be just still milking cows. It's what I will be. It's the core of what we're doing. But, you know, I don't know, Catherine, to be honest. I suppose the focus really at the minute now is personal. Our wedding was postponed due to COVID, so I want to get that back on track. And yeah, the farm is going quite well. So if I could maintain where I am, improve year on year, improve the efficiencies inside the business, that would be enough for me in the short term. For me, short term is 5 years. Long term into the future, I don't know, continue my progression, and I'd be very happy with that.
Brilliant. Well done. Thanks. And Gerry, one last question for you. Have you any good book recommendations for us?
Any good book recommendations for you? Oh, a couple of things on that. I might give a few different ones in different areas. The greatest book I've ever read in my life, for me personally, is a book called How to Stop Worrying and Start Living. I got some really, really valuable nuggets, strategies, practical things. And ironically, it was written by the man who delivered a public speaking course to Dale Carnegie. Sorry, to Warren Buffett. His name was Dale Carnegie. How to Stop Worrying and Start Living. From a business perspective, the best business books I've ever read are written by a man called Patrick Lencioni, Lencioni. And any of his books, he's written 8 or 9 books. From a business perspective, he talks about the 5 dysfunctions of a team as one of his books. There's some nuggets in that, particularly if people see themselves going into management leadership roles. I think you will really find Patrick Lencioni's books unbelievably valuable. I give these books to some of my clients that I think will really interest them. And anytime I send somebody a Patrick Lencioni book, a week later, a month later, a year later, I always get thanked profusely by the leader I've sent the book to, every time.
Great. Okay, brilliant. Thanks. They'll be sold out now after this event. So, look, I'll just wrap up the event. So huge thanks to Gerry and Dara for taking their time today You know, they've certainly given us plenty food for thought, and you know, we've many goals now to set. It's great time to be starting at this time of the year as well. So huge thanks to them for taking part and agreeing to come on today. I'd like to thank Grant Thornton and the Mocker SkillsNet, who kindly sponsored this event. Huge thanks to ASA's Barbara McGoldrick, who pulled this whole event together, and to our president, the ASA president, Anne-Marie Butler, for her continued support and guidance in making all these events happen.